everyone, my name is Jordan and thank you for watching this video. As you can tell by the title, if you've read it, this is a kind of like a review, kind of recap of what it was like for the orientation for our adoption agency. We had orientation Saturday, this past Saturday, and it was very eye-opening for a lot of reasons. Well, we knew a lot about the adoption process because we did a lot of research beforehand, but this was the first time we were actually able to meet with the organization, talk to the people who work there, and then also get more information about their business. Well, not so much their business, their ministry, because they're a Catholic charity, so they're a nonprofit, so they're not doing this for the money, they're doing this as their way of preaching the gospel and being pro-life. So Saturday was the first time meeting. We've spoken with this lady named Joan for a couple of months now that I've been talking to her over the phone, and this was my first time actually meeting her. So they do this informational orientation twice a year, where couples can come, they get more information about this organization in particular, more information about the adoption process, and then this kind of gives you a chance to decide if adoption is for you or if it's something that you want to continue to pursue. I've realized so far that it is not for the faint of heart. It is a very stressful process for both the adoptive parents and then also the expectant mother, because for one, this is probably not how she envisioned this situation in her life, and then it's also stressful for the adoptive parent because it is very expensive. There is a lot of risk that goes into it as well, because just because you pay the money does not mean that you are guaranteed to go home with a child, which is the one issue that a lot of people have with adoption, which is why a lot of people won't adopt, is because you just don't know. There are different types of adoption agencies. So the place that we're looking to is called Catholic Charities. They're a nonprofit Catholic organization. And the thing that makes them different than your standard organization or adoption agency is that they are more focused on the birth mom, or the expectant mom, excuse me. Don't want to say birth mom because don't want anybody to go crazy on me in the comments. So their primary ministry is for the expectant mom. Their main thing is to have her choose life for their child as opposed to having an abortion. So that's the main thing for them. And they are also there to offer resources and services to her if she decides that she would still like to parent the child. Us as adoptive parents, we're there in case she decides adoption is best for her. So with this place, it's not like a lot of other places where they're like, okay, we'll find babies. That's what she said. We don't find you babies. We are here for the mothers. If the mother so chooses to place her child for adoption, then they can say, well, we've met with this many families who we think would be a good fit for you as far as what it is that you want for your child. So that's the main thing with them. I learned a lot about how adoption originally started, what it was like back in the 40s when the organization first started. She said that it was primarily middle class, upper middle class Caucasians who adopted. That was pretty much it. They would pretend to be pregnant, they put the pillow under their shirt, waddle around because it was a secret. You know, it was just kind of like a taboo thing no one talked about. You didn't want people to know that you had to adopt because it wasn't something that you just did out of the kindness of your heart. You adopted because you couldn't have children and you were embarrassed that you couldn't have children. And there still is a lot of that stigma of why you adopt. Like, I've heard in a lot of like marriage groups, it wasn't said directly to me specifically, but it's implied very frequently in a lot of these groups, especially faith-based groups, that you are not fulfilling your duty as a wife if you are not pregnant basically immediately after getting married. And so since I'm not pregnant, I've never been pregnant, I'll be 30 in April, never been pregnant, never had a positive pregnancy test, then it kind of makes you, when people say things like that, it makes you feel like you as a person are a failure, that you as a wife are a failure. And people will say things like, well, maybe your husband should leave, he should go be with someone who can fulfill his desire to be a father. Like, people are being told these things constantly, and it's terrible to sell that to someone, to say that you not getting pregnant immediately, or you not getting your wife pregnant immediately, means that you are not fulfilling your duty as a spouse. They also say that if you aren't able to get pregnant, then maybe that's not the man that God had meant for you. Or if your wife is unable to get pregnant, maybe that's not the woman that God had intended to be your wife, which is complete BS, because there are plenty of reasons why people can't have children. And what if the other person is a reason why? Or if you just can't get pregnant, then you just can't get pregnant. Faith has absolutely nothing to do with it. If your body is physically incapable of getting pregnant, carrying a baby to full term, or giving birth, no matter who it is that you end up marrying, that's not going to change, because it's not there. So women who were unwed mothers, single women who got pregnant out of wedlock, would go off to go visit their aunt in Georgia for the summer, or go to music camp, or anything like that, where when they would start to show, or soon they were going to start to show. So they'd go out of town, visit with some family for a while, stay at a home, like a convent back in the day, when I don't even know if they still have convents. They stayed at a convent, they stayed at a home for women, they'd give birth, give the child to the adoptive parents. The adoptive parents usually went on like a vacation or a baby moon or something around the time that the expectant mom was supposed to give birth, or if they were going to go pick up a child from an orphanage, they would just go on vacation, pick up the child, and then come back and be like, oh my God, would you believe it? While we were on our trip, I went into labor and gave birth. Like, who would have thought? I wasn't due for another 4 weeks. Like, just kind of making it up, and no one knew. No one really questioned it, because there wasn't social media. It was a lot easier to hide things like that back then. So that was a big deal there. She also said that back then they used to find babies for parents. So if a doctor was looking to adopt, they said they would the babies would go to foster care. So a lot of things that happened. They said the baby didn't always go directly to the adoptive parent. A lot of times the babies went into foster care until they found suitable parents for the child. So they would monitor the baby, see how they developed, if they were hitting all of their milestones like they were supposed to. If they're hitting their milestones early, started to develop early, they thought, okay, this baby is really smart, we're going to place this baby with a well-to-do family. So if a newborn was born and they started monitoring, it's like, okay, this baby's got blonde hair, blue eyes, this is going to be a well sought after infant. And then they started noticing that this baby is hitting their 6-month marks at 4 months, and it was like, okay, this baby develops faster than some of the other ones, so this one's going to be smart, we're going to put this baby with a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. There could be someone who would not want us to parent their child because we're not religious, because Solomon has tattoos, or because I have a couple of tattoos, or someone may not want us to parent because I want to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe she wants her child to be raised in a home where both parents work, or where the mom is a very strong financial figure within the family. Like, it really just kind of depends off of what they want, as opposed to what we want, or mostly just off we want. We could just say like, hey, we are fairly attractive, we're smart, Solomon has a degree, I have a business, all these things that make us sound good on paper, or that I think would make us sound good on paper, may not be appealing to an expectant mom. Maybe she wants someone who is a very conservative lifestyle, no tattoos, goes to church multiple times a week, lives in a small neighborhood, like a suburb country. Like those types of things could be something that she has on her criteria, and we just wouldn't fit that. There are some people who may want us to be more outgoing. They may say like we're too boring, or they want their child to be with a more adventurous family who travels more or who does more outdoorsy stuff. Like there's all types of factors that go into it that I didn't realize beforehand. I thought it was just like, oh, people will just see our picture, they'll read information about us, and then just go for that. But there are a lot of things now that the expectant mom has more say in that they used to not, because back in the day they didn't even really know the families that the child went to. Now they want to know about us. We have to do all these background checks. They want to see the types of people that we are and determine whether or not she thinks it's a good idea to place her child with us. And just because she doesn't want to place her child with us doesn't mean that she doesn't think that we would be good parents. We just may not be the parents that she wants for her child, because it is still her child. And that's one of the things that I've also learned is it's not your baby until that child is in your house. There are tons of people who lose a lot of money in adoption because you sign up with your agency, or you get your attorney. You create your adoption profile. The profile is presented to a mom. So it's like a magazine that's got photos of you, information about your life. I have to write an autobiographical statement talking about myself, which is going to be extremely hard to do. I have to write a letter about Solomon, about how I think he's going to be a good father, the type of father I think he's going to be. That'll be easy. We have to talk about our home life, pictures of what our house looks like, the type of neighborhood that we live in, the type of neighborhood that we plan on raising the child in, our moral standing. They want to know how we plan on raising the child. If we are going to include religion, what type of religion is it going to be? Is it going to be very strict? Is it going to be loosely based off religion? Is it going to be a mixture of multiple religions? Are we going to be like super zen, we burn sage, we meditate, and we just go where the vibes take us? Like all these types of things they want to know, because they all take that into consideration on whether or not they show your profile to a mother, or whether or not that mother even actually wants to talk to you. So one of the things people ask all the time is, when will you get a baby? We have no idea. We don't even know how many times our profile is going to be shown. We don't know how many people our profile is going to be shown to. It really just kind of depends. A mother comes in and says, like, I'm pregnant. I would like to place my child for adoption. She then says what she's looking for in couples. So she could say, I'm looking for a middle to upper middle class African American couple, at least one of them college educated. Then she say, okay, cool. Let me pull all the profiles that I have that match that criteria. So one mom could be looking at 50 different profiles at any given time. And then she's got to look through these little profile books that are like magazines of our lives. And then she decides if she wants to meet us or if she wants to talk to us. So it's kind of weird where it's kind of like a catalog, I guess, of parents that she has to choose from. And it really just depends on how many people see our book. Because the place that we're looking is a very small organization. They only placed 10 babies last year. So you just never know how many moms are going to have, how many moms would think we fit her criteria. So there could have had 10 moms this year, and maybe only one of those moms would have actually seen our book, and then she decides to go with another couple. So there's that, which is kind of, it does not do good for my anxiety. Okay, so we met a couple there, and the wife told me that they have a bigger agency, like a legitimate, like an agency. They also have the Catholic Charity, which is a non-profit, and then they also have an adoption attorney. So they have 3 different ways to try and get matched, because they were matched with twins, and then the mother decided she wanted to parent. So they had gone through the whole thing, paid all the money, got matched, started prepping for the twins, and then the mother changed her mind. So they have to keep paying they're matched again in May, but they're matched again now, and the baby is due in May, but it's like she said, like, that's not my baby until it's in my house, because it could happen again, and it happens very frequently. And that's one of the things that I ask, because you can ask questions. I asked a lot of questions. One of my questions was how the fees work, because with some agencies, well, with most agencies, you pay an upfront amount, and that's the agency fee, and it's non-refundable. Most agencies are non-refundable. So whatever money you pay, that's it. Whether you get a baby or not, then that's money that's gone. So one place that I was looking at, $18,000 upfront just for the fee. And that's not the total amount. That's just the fee before they do anything. With this place, you pay your home study and your application fee, which is $1,500. And then when they accept you, I think there's another $2,000 upon acceptance. And then you don't pay again until you get placed with the baby, when the baby actually comes home with you. So therefore, it cuts down a lot of the risk in the amount of money that you lose. And the agency isn't as big. It could take longer for you to get placed. So that was one of the things that I noticed. And I do really like the organization thus far. One of the things I thought was kind of weird, there are price differences for healthy and then for special needs. So healthy infants are healthy, no physical disabilities, not blind, not deaf, at least as far as I know of, like at birth. And then special needs is anything where they are disabled, they're blind, they're hearing impaired, or deaf. And at this place's case, African American and sibling groups are considered special needs. Now, some people are offended by that, and at first I was kind of questioning it, like, okay, do I really want to go with an organization that considers being African American a special need? Because I don't think I'm a special need, okay? I like being black. I would never want to be anything other than black. If I had it my way, I'd be a little bit darker, but that is not the point. So someone asked why African Americans were considered special needs. One girl tried to kind of dance around the answer, like she didn't really want to come out and say it. But the lady we had been dealing with is an older black woman who's like, look, let me answer this question. So back to when adoption started, like we said, it was primarily middle and upper middle class Caucasian. African American children were seen as unadoptable, so no one wanted to adopt them. So children then would either be taken by a family member and just raised that way, or they would end up in an orphanage or in a group home, and then eventually would age out of the system and go on about their way. But Hispanic children, African American children, no one was looking to adopt them. Everyone only wanted healthy Caucasian babies, and that was it. So by the law, they consider anything that is not Caucasian or half Caucasian to be a special needs case, because for so long no one wanted to adopt them. They were seen as unfit for adoption, and I mean, that was just it, like point blank, like no one wanted black babies. And she also said that because she's like, as much as we don't want it, and now let me step back, we got there, it's a room full of white couples. There was one other black couple, and then us. So out of all the couples, there was, because it wasn't a big room, so I want to say maybe there's probably about 50 people there. And out of those 50 people, outside of the people who worked there, 4 of us were black. So she said, as much as we don't want to admit it, racism still exists, whether it be social, economic, whether it's in the workplace, because let's face it, some companies do pay African Americans less than their Caucasian counterparts, even if they have the same degree. Just like women make less money than some men who have the same degree, if not a better degree. They may be smarter, but that's just how some companies work, and African Americans oftentimes can't afford to adopt for a lot of the reasons that stem back to racism. So they decided to still categorize African American as special needs because special needs is a price break. So for this organization, for healthy Caucasian or half Caucasian, it is $21,000. For an African American, a sibling group, or special needs, it is $15,000. So there's a $6,000 difference. So they're seeing it as, for one, it's going to help more African Americans adopt, because there are women who are specifically asking for their child to be raised by African American or biracial family with at least one black person. Because I'm sure most of you noticed that black people don't adopt, or we do adopt but we don't talk about it. It's very taboo within the African American community of adoption. And when we started the process, I look on YouTube, I try to find blogs, and I couldn't find any people who looks like me who were going through this process. So there are more black children than any other ethnicity in foster care and that are being placed for adoption. So much so that agencies have to offer a discount to adopt African Americans. Otherwise, they're going to stay in foster care, or they're going to stay in an orphanage, or they're just going to end up living in foster care throughout their entire life, hopping around from group home to group home. This is a way to try and get them in a home of what they call a forever family. There's one place that is called that has what they call the African American Enrichment Program, which is an organization that's sole job is to match black babies with black families. Now, some people think like, oh, that's racist. Why would you only give a child to a black family? Because a child needs mirrors. A child needs to be able to see there are people who look like them in their life, whether it's in their house, it's at their school, in their neighborhood, or their church. You need to be able to see that there is at least one other person or a couple people who look like me. I feel personally, this is my opinion, that a lot of trauma that is associated with adoption is the trauma of knowing or feeling like you don't belong where you are. Sure, their living conditions may be better. They may have a more stable household. They have a better education. But that doesn't negate from the fact that they now know no one around them looks like them. And that's a struggle when you can't relate to anyone. No one looks like you. No one has the same hair type as you or similar hair texture as you. Your parents don't know how to do your hair. Your friends don't know how to do your hair. All day you've got the, oh my God, can I touch it? It's just, oh, it's so soft. And it's just, oh, it grows upward and not downward like ours does. And it's just, oh my goodness, and it's just so thick, and oh, my fingers, my fingers are getting, no one wants to deal with it every day, and it happens. I think that people who adopt children should, if they don't look like the child they're adopting, then they should do a better job of implementing that child's culture into their life. Like, for instance, if we decided to go the foster care route, and they placed a Filipino baby with us, and I got attached and wanted to adopt this baby, then what I'm going to start doing is learning about Filipino culture. I'm going to learn how to cook Filipino food. Okay? A girl I know from high school, her name is Marilee. Her mom is Filipino and makes the best lumpia I've ever had in my entire life. I would call her and say, hey, Marilee, can you have your mom put together her lumpia recipe for me, please? And thank you. Can you also give me some tips on some other Filipino dishes? Like, I would do what I could to make sure that that child knew that they were Filipino, had some access to their culture, and then also would be able to learn more about it, and then maybe find like a Filipino dance class for her to join, like after school, or some other type of like sport or something. Like, if I got, like, it's just, I just feel like more people need to do that, and which is one of the reasons why I want to get like either an ancestry DNA test done once we get placed with the child, so we can learn about the child's ethnic background. So if by chance the child we get is African American, but the mother is like a third generation American. So she considers herself African American, but her family came from Ethiopia. I would want to learn about Ethiopian culture, learn how to make Ethiopian food, so that way the child knows, like, hey, we're black. You're also black, but you are Ethiopian. So you can learn about your culture so they can feel they have a connection to something. Because it's hard enough to be adopted as is. And that's one of the reasons why, well, other than the fact that more black children just need to be adopted, we want it to be where the child will look, I guess, relatively similar to us, only because we don't want the child to have to explain to people that they're adopted unless they want to. Like, I have friends from high school who are adopted. One of my best friends in high school is adopted. And the only people who know that this person is adopted are the people that this person told. I'm not going to say if it was a boy or if it was a girl, because that's their business. It's not my story to tell. I know because we were really close in high school. And I have some friends who were adopted, and they tell people that they were adopted. Even though they look like their parents, they still say, oh yeah, this is my mom. Like, I'm adopted. I was adopted when I was 8, or I was adopted when I was 2. And then there are people who were adopted who just don't want to talk about it. They have no desire to meet their birth family. They have no desire to connect with anyone there. But these are my parents. These are the people I grew up with. This is my family. And that is their choice to make. I don't want to... Like, people know they're adopted, but I don't want it to be obvious to where every time we go to the grocery store, I have to explain, like, no, I'm not the nanny. My daughter is Filipino because I adopted a Filipino girl. Like, I just don't want them to have to deal with that burden of explaining to people every time we go somewhere why they were adopted, how the process went. Like, that's just not what I want for them. Call me selfish, but I just feel like that is I feel in my heart that is the best for the child that I'm going to raise. I want them to focus on other aspects of their life, their school, hobbies that they're interested in. If they decide they want their hair braided this week, or if they want a ponytail, like, those are the type of things I feel like a child should be worried about. Not, are people going to look at us funny every time we go out to a restaurant because I don't look like everyone else? That's just me. If you decide that you want to transracially adopt, then that's fine by you. But for me personally, I think that adopting an African American child is what's best for us, and also for the black community. The caseworker told me we have a wait list for people who want healthy Caucasian babies. There are more people who want white babies than there are white babies who need to be adopted. There are more black children that need to be adopted than there are parents who are willing to adopt them. That's a problem. So this is why you see so many Caucasians who are adopting black children. Now, I don't have a problem with Caucasians who adopt black children. I have friends who were adopted by Caucasian. I have black friends I went to high school with who are adopted by their white parents. And, I mean, that's fact of the matter. Otherwise, they would have still been in foster care or living in a bad home or something like that. Their prerogative. But just the issue at hand is there are more black children who need parents. That's the issue. And she told me, like, we have mothers who come who want black parents for their children, and we just don't have enough of them. So they end up having to go to another organization, or they end up giving birth and taking the baby home and waiting until they can find someone who can take the child, because that is what they want for their child. All I'm saying is that we need more diverse parents to adopt children. That's what I'm saying. Because it just can't continue to be a upper middle class Caucasian thing. Because black people, we need to adopt these kids, guys. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, there are so many kids who need parents. There are so many children who are aging out of the foster care system. Once they turn 18, that's it. They're gone. They're out on the street. They're on their own. You still need a parent at 18. Because surely enough, when I was 19, guess where my ass was? At my mom's house, washing clothes. Because I didn't have change for the washing machine, or I didn't want to use the washing machine in my apartment complex at college, like at my student housing. Or my mom was taking me grocery shopping still. I could do it by myself, but she was just better at it. Because she's a mom. She's been adulting a lot longer than I have. When I'm sick, guess who I call? My mom. I'm almost 30 years old, and I still call my mom with symptoms. Like, hey girl, are you busy? So, I got this tickle back here in the back of my throat. And when I cough, it makes this noise. And then I'm coughing, because my mom's a nurse. And I'm coughing on the phone for her to hear it. And then she's like, okay, well, I think it could be this. You need to take this or go to the doctor. Like, you need a parent at any age. Since I'm not yet 30, I don't think I would be a good mother to like a 16-year-old. I feel like she would probably see me more as like her weird older sister than her mom, and I feel like they probably wouldn't respect me as much, which is why we're not adopting an older child yet. We will be in the future. Like, this is not something we're just doing just because we can't have a baby right now. Like, we've been talking about adoption for a while. Like, we announced that we were moving forward with adoption before starting IVF. People were kind of like questioning it, like, why would you guys do that? Why don't you just have your own child? Because we can't. If it was as easy as everybody said, I probably would have been pregnant with my second one by now. At least. Best case scenario, I'd have been working on number 3. But that's just not how life worked for us. And that's fine. We came to grips with it. We came to the agreement that we would move forward with adoption first, because we always talked about adopting an older child later. So we're like, okay, we'll have our kids, and then when our kids were probably about middle school age, then we would start looking into adopting an older child close to their age. So another child in middle school, or if our children were in high school, we would adopt a middle schooler or someone just starting high school. But now, the way it is, and the way things are going, I definitely think that we will adopt multiple older children. That's what I just say. I think a plan, but you know what they say, man plans. God laughs, and I'm sure he was laughing when I said I was going to get pregnant right after the wedding. He was like, girl, wait. You just wait and see, okay? Got plans for you, and it does not involve a baby, at least one that comes out of you. I really decided that I'm just going to try and take this thing out as far as I can to try and bring some more, like, awareness to it. I didn't think it was, I guess, that big of a deal to adopt if you're black, but the deeper we get into it, the more that I learned that it really is like a taboo thing, and I don't understand why, or I don't understand why it still is, I should say. So, I'm going to do my part by blogging and YouTubing our process, because I think that it's going to be worth it, and hopefully we can inspire other couples to do the same. Thank you guys so much